What's up, party people? Today I'm going to tell you about the top 5 must-have tools you didn't know you needed, but you do need something like that. Yeah, let's go. What I tried to do for this video was come up with 5 tools that once I purchased them, I thought, man, why didn't I buy these sooner? Why? I'd gone years without them, and then once I have them, I would never be without them. So let's start with tool number 1, the pull saw. Sometimes called a Japanese saw because there are versions that are far more traditional than this DEWALT version that I bought at, I bought this on Amazon, I think. And by the way, I'll put links down in the description for most of these tools, if not all these tools, if I can find a link for them. And I make a couple pennies off of every purchase, and it costs you nothing. I'm sure you know all this whole spiel after watching YouTube videos for this long. Traditional saws work in a push form. When you have to, the cut occurs on the push. Japanese saws, pull saws, flush cut saws work on the pull. And what makes these so amazing is that the amount of control they give you. One thing that a lot of these saws have compared to traditional push saws, most of the time, if not all the time, they're gonna have more teeth than a traditional push saw. I got to the point where whenever I had my cabinet shop, whenever we went out on a job site, that I wouldn't even take a powered saw with me. If I was just gonna have to cut trim and stuff, I just took the pull saw because it's fast. It cuts much faster than a traditional saw. I recommend you get one because I think you'll like it a lot. Tool number 2, flush cut trimmers, snippers, snips, cutters, pullers, pliers, flush cut pliers, snips, flush trimmers, flush cut pliers, snips. Practice before you film. What makes these so great is if you have a nail that sticks out of something that you're building, obviously, and you try to use traditional snips, pliers, cutters, I don't know, I should have practiced this before I filmed. They have a lot of times they're slightly rounded on the back, and also where the cut actually happens, they're beveled on each side. And so you're going to leave just a tiny little nib of whatever the nail or staple that you're trying to cut. And then that's just a hassle. In fact, it's so much of a hassle that generally what I do is I just take the nail, and this is another tip if you don't have flush cut. This is a tip if you don't have flush cut snips, is to take the nail and just wiggle it back and forth, and a lot of times it'll break below the surface, but that's not always the best option. These lay flush with the surface that you're cutting, and it will cut the protruding nail, generally flush, or just where you've got to sand it just a little bit. So these are really handy. You can clearly see here that the flush cut ones barely left anything sticking up there, where the traditional ones, yeah, those are finger rippers right there. These were something around like $17. Again, I'll put a link in the description below, but it's just a tool that I think you'll really like if you ever have the need to arise to cut nails and whatnot. Tool number 3, the Kreg pocket hole jig system. And actually there's other manufacturers. Kreg just happens to be what I've had. I believe this is called the Kreg K4 pocket hole jig system, and these are amazing. This is adjustable. It has this clamp here that you can move in and out, and to adjust for the thickness of the wood that you put between it and the holes that guide you. So it's got the 2 here that are placed closely, and then there's a total of 3, and you can use them however you need, move your wood around. The reason the 2 there are close is generally for like a face frame. The way it works is you put your wood in here, close it up, you can adjust the thickness on here. On the side here are little markings that tell you the height that you need this for the thickness of wood. I've got this set up at 3/4 of an inch right now. All you do is loosen the brass screw from the back, and then this moves up and down and out. And the reason it moves out is because if you have to drill a hole in a piece of wood that obviously you can't fit into the jig, you can use a clamp. You can use any clamp, but I have a couple Kreg clamps that I really like. These help you line everything up. This clamp right here actually goes into one of the holes drilled from the jig and helps you hold the wood. It uses this stepped drill bit, and the reason it's stepped is because the main part of the hole that you're drilling is actually the guide hole, the countersunk part for the screw head to go through. And then the step piece here is where it uses a pan head screw, and that screw is going to stop at that stepped bit right there, stepped part right there. But the speed that these let you assemble and the precision actually is just a huge time saver, and it makes for a really strong joint. Uses these screws, pan head screws. Pretty sure all of them are square drive, #2 square drive, which I love. Just like that, you've got a really strong joint, especially if it's glued up, of course. So this isn't always the fastest method for joinery, or the best. You know, when you're building cabinet boxes, depending on what tools you have available, you know, rabbiting and dadoing and using that form of joinery can actually be faster than this if you're building a bunch of pieces. But if you're just putting one box together, this is probably faster for you. Again, this is the Kreg K4. I'll put a link in the description. It's about $99. My next must-have tool you didn't know you needed to know that you need is self-centering drill bits. Wow. Anytime you've got something that already is pre-drilled and then you need to further pre-drill into the second base that you're going to be screwing the original piece to, is where these work really well. The ends of them are chamfered, and that lets it center into the hole. And of course, there's different size drill bits. Where these really excel is when you're doing something like a piano hinge, where you're just drilling dozens of holes, and they have to be precise because you know how sensitive a piano hinge is. The holes get off just a little bit and everything binds and twists. You don't have to have one, but once you do, it's like, if you never do hinges of any sort, you may never have the need for these, but they're so inexpensive that you might as well buy some and have them on hand when you do need them. They're amazing. Buy them now. So now we have come to the final tool in our 5 must-have tools you didn't know you needed to know you needed, that you needed to use. When I show you this tool, some of you will go, "You don't need that tool, and that's ridiculous. That thing's so expensive." And a lot of people say that in the comments. They're like, "No, that tool's so expensive." This one is. You don't have to get an expensive one. Without further ado, here it is. It's a box. Now, this is my track saw.
This is my boomstick.
So if you're like me and your space is limited in your shop, or even more so like me and your shop is your garage and you have no room, then these can come in very handy. But even if not, these things are amazing. I did a video, and I'll put a link right here that will where I explained the differences between a track saw and a job site saw, a table saw, which is what I use here at my house. I have both of them because it works out well. This is really good for cutting down sheet goods to smaller pieces. One of the main advantages of a track saw obviously is straight cuts, but because it plunges, you can cut holes out of things. I use that whenever I cut my hole for the router tabletop, and I'll put a link for that also right there. This particular model right here, this is the Festool Ts75. This one is a little ridiculous. This cost over $800.
Holy crap!
And that includes this 75-inch track. And these tracks, I mean, I'll be honest with you, these tracks, the prices on these things are ridiculous. But you gotta have them, or what's the point of having a track saw? When I bought mine, like I said, it came with a 75-inch track, and then I bought the 55-inch track, and they attach to each other. Honestly, I don't even know why they give you a 75-inch track with this, because generally, if it's for sheet goods, you're gonna need a 55 or the 106-inch. But I thought I'd be clever and buy a 55-inch and attach them. That way I didn't have to spend the stupid money on the 106-inch track. The main reason that I went with Festool as opposed to one of the other brands that cost less and are pretty much just as good is the TS75 will do a depth of cut of about 3 inches. And the TS55 will only do about 2 inches. Most of the track saws are right around 2 inches, but I wanted to be able to cut lumber with it. You can almost use this as a joiner to straight line rip lumber, and that's one of the big advantages of the TS75. Many companies make track saws, and as far as I know, they're all really made well and work really well. You can even make your own track saw. There's lots of videos that show you how to do that. You can use plywood to make your track, to make your guide, and just use a traditional circular saw with a high tooth count. A high tooth count. A high tooth count? Yeah, a high count, a high count. You can use a blade with a lot of teeth on it, and it'll give you a smooth cut. Another reason I went with Festool was because they have excellent dust collection.
Excellent!
And in fact, whenever I hook my vacuum up to this, it puts out almost no dust. It's really amazing. You can set your depth, and this is one of the advantages of the track saw versus a traditional circular saw. Although you can set your depth on that, it's not as precise. A track saw rides on, yeah, you guessed it, a track. It has a release button up here. You push that, lets the blade drop and plunge, and you also have a riving knife that goes behind the blade to help prevent kickbacks. Speed control here, and you can also do beveled cuts. Anyway, this is the Festool TS75. Again, you don't need a Festool. All track saws are nice. Build a track saw, use your circular saw. This tool is amazing. Guys, if there's any tools that you think I left out, let me know in the comments down below, and if I have said tool, I'll include those in a future video. If you like this video, I'll do more like this. And if you like this video, please like, comment, and share, and I'll see you next time.